I'm Frank Vaughn, and it is November 11th, 2025, Remembrance Day. A day when politicians will put on a poppy, and they will go and they will give speeches about how we need to honor the legacy of our fighting men and women. And then, tomorrow morning, maybe later this afternoon, they'll get up and they will go back to work destroying the very thing that our forefathers fought over and for. The very country that lies in tatters. Just so you know where I come from, the man on the right is my grandfather, and flanking him in the middle and on the left are two uncles, my father, Frank. Frank the First. I am Frank the Third. My son is Frank the Fourth. This is the red ensign. This is the flag that those men fought under in Europe. This is my understanding anyway, is this is the flag that he carried with him. This flag was kept folded up in my father's Bible. My father has been deceased for quite some time now. But it was such an important item that it never left his Bible, along with a few other artifacts from his life. Now, the theme of my Remembrance Day talks over recent years has been that we have forgotten. Nobody's remembering. There's a lot of virtue signaling. The soldiers themselves remember. But we have lost our legacy. Our legacy is actively under attack by our politicians, by our media, by the globalists at the World Economic Forum and the UN, and the legacy of what this nation used to be has been completely destroyed. Now, we're going to start our tale with the replacement of that flag, the flag under which so much blood was shed. In 1965, we adopted our current flag. It's iconic, distinctly Canadian, but nobody wanted it. Nobody voted for it. There was no referendum. There was no discussion. Well, there was a public discussion and there was polling, but the people never got to vote for the replacement. Now, this was brought to us by Prime Minister Lester B. Pearson, and he'd been on a crusade since 1960 to replace the de facto Canadian flag at the time, which was the red ensign. So much so that it became official Liberal policy for the 1963 federal election. It was promised that within 2 years of taking office, a Liberal government would submit a flag design to Parliament. They weren't kidding. In June of 1964, Pearson introduced the infamous Pearson pennant, which was more popular than the flag we ended up with. But let's not get distracted. It was heavily disliked by Pearson's colleagues in the House of Commons because the people and what they wanted, the soldiers and what they wanted, didn't matter. It was all about Parliament. It was all about government. It was all about what they wanted. A poll conducted by Gallup at the time found that 48% of Canadians liked the design and 41% opposed it. Pearson heard the criticism and withdrew his design and decided to delegate the responsibility of selecting a new flag to a parliamentary committee consisting of 7 Liberals, 5 Conservatives, and 1 member each from the NDP, the Social Credit Party, and the Ralliement Créditiste. Canadians submitted thousands of flags to the committee, and it ended up voting unanimously, perhaps by accident, on October 22nd, 1964, to send the flag designed by George Stanley to the House of Commons for debate. And it was chosen out of 3 finalists after the variant with the Union flag and the fleur-de-lis were eliminated. A month-and-a-half-long debate over the flag then occurred in the House with John Diefenbaker's Conservatives launching a filibuster in a last-ditch effort to avoid the inevitable. A motion of closure was introduced on the advice of French Conservative MP Léon Balchier. Wolves in the sheep pen. It always seems these few Conservative MPs that they can cobble together in Quebec always seem to be the knife in the heart. Even though the support is much more vast in the rest of the country, it seems to always come from Quebec, the non-participant in Confederation, the non-signatory. We'll get there. After an additional 250 or so speeches on December 15th, 1964, at 2:15 a.m., the House voted 163 to 78 to adopt the flag. And on December 17th, the Senate followed suit, voting 38 to 23 to adopt the flag. Diefenbaker dubbed the new flag a flag by closure, imposed by closure. the flag was replaced. That was in 1964 and 1965. And then in 1982, the entire country was replaced. People don't even realize it. People have no idea that what happened in 1982, when the Constitution was supposedly repatriated, that the nation was replaced, that the Charter of Rights and Freedoms overrode the Bill of Rights, and you, as a Canadian citizen, never got a vote for it. Official multiculturalism was adopted by that very Liberal government. They started to sell off our gold reserves, which was accelerated under Brian Mulroney, the replacement, the so-called alternative to the years of Trudeau mania. He nuked our gold to zero. He left us with nothing but paper fiat, weakening our nation. Official free trade, the way that they designed it, was adopted. Canada was deindustrialized. Our nation's lifeblood, the resources under our feet, were slowly sold off to foreign domination. The country was re-engineered. The army, the strong military that ensured the independence and that was a key component of our core culture, which it's commonplace nowadays for people to just ignore that Canada had a core culture at one time because it's been demonized and destroyed since 1982 when the Charter came in, and in the 1970s when official multiculturalism became adopted. Now, we just celebrate every other nation, many of them that we fought against, many with morally abhorrent, incompatible values to what used to define what Canada is. And we have engineered the country around servicing those nations. We've delegated our resource development and our product, and we ship a lot of it overseas to a place called China, a totalitarian hellhole. Sure, prosperous. They got shining new cities. If you ignore what's going on in the countryside, if you ignore the millions who are working in slave labor camps, if you ignore that they have the highest incarceration rate in the world, if you ignore the draconian policies that have defined that nation, we now ship them the material necessary to build the very Navy that one day we may have to fight with our blood under a flag no one voted for, under a charter that nobody voted for. My grandfather, I don't want to speak for him. That's not what I'm doing here. I might be a descendant, but I am in no position to speak for him. But what I can say, factually, is that this isn't the nation that all these men fought for. This isn't the nation that stormed the beaches on D-Day. A lot of people like to LARP and pretend, but the fact is, the nation's been gutted. It's been given away. The army that they fought for, strong, standing proud and free, has been deconstructed. We house our men in barracks, our men and women in barracks, that are full of forever chemicals, literally toxifying their bodies while they serve the Canadian military. Enrollment rates are at record lows. They're not recovering. And a lot of that reason is ridiculously low morale because now they're being force-fed DEI. Do a search on Google for images. Canadian military, gay pride flags. Canadian military, trans flags. And you will find these poor men and women standing in formation having to carry this flag of ideological capture. They got rainbow crosswalks all over military bases, but they don't have adequate ammo. And this is a bipartisan story. In the Harper years, when there was joint training exercises going on between the Canadian Armed Forces and the American military, the Canadians were running around in the woods, and whenever they had to signal that they fired their gun, they didn't pull the trigger. They just yelled "bang" because they didn't have blank rounds. They couldn't actually. It's hard to talk about these things. It's because it's real. It's real. This is what we've done. This is how we supposedly remember. One day a year, we get out the poppies. One day a year, the politicians line up and they give speeches. And then the next day they go back, as I said to open this, to destroying this nation. It's so absurd. We don't have the army. We don't have the ammo. We don't have the supplies. We don't even have the safe barracks for these people. And yet we have enough money for rainbow crosswalks and flags, and then we instruct them that they have to lift their feet when they drive over those rainbow crosswalks on a vehicle. I hope none of them do. This nation has become a post-national joke. The men and women that we're supposed to be remembering fought for a nation with a core national identity, with a heritage, with a legacy, with core cultural and ethnic features, which we are now told we have to abandon, and that the only thing we're able to celebrate are cultures and ethnicities and religions that come from somewhere else. We went from a nation that valued church and Christianity to a nation where hundreds of churches can be burned, and the media will scarcely talk about it. The second graffiti appears on a synagogue, or the second somebody throws an egg in a mosque, it is national headlines. But churches burn all around us as a national pastime. Nothing gets said. That's the legacy of these men and women that we're supposed to be remembering. So I can't come before you and give you some kind of speech about how wonderful that legacy is and how honored and how privileged we are to have it. I can't sit here and say, they laid down our lives so that we could have our freedom. That's a typical refrain from politicians, because we don't have freedom. We don't have the freedom to celebrate our culture. We don't have the freedom of actual God-given civil rights. We have a charter, which the government can suspend. The so-called civil rights that we went and we fought, the bad Nazis, and we killed them all. Not just the military, we killed them in droves in Dresden and in their cities. These civilians, which were also slaves, firebombed them out of existence, did horrible things in the conduct of the war to innocent people, largely innocent people who were also captured. And that's not to excuse the Nazi regime. It's just to say that war is hell on both sides. And we should remember that. And we fought the tyrant, and we won. And then, over the course of time, we replaced the nation that won that war with something else. This androgynous mix, which is not allowed to have a core feature, except for the bureaucracy, except for our vaunted healthcare system, which leaves people to die, which has introduced maid services and wants to expand them to anybody. If you're suffering from mental health, maybe you don't need help. Maybe you need a needle. Maybe you need permanent treatment. Imagine if you were just released from this. I cannot, for the life of me, imagine that this is what they wanted. It's apostasy. And the truth is, I wouldn't want to deny the military or any of the veterans their day. But the older I get, and the more of these days that slip behind me, the more I've come to hate this day because of what our politicians and our leadership do with it. This day is the height of hypocrisy. This day is the height of them throwing salt in the wound. And I don't think most people realize it. It's like a frog in a pot slowly being boiled. It doesn't realize it until it's too late. The nation that we're supposed to be remembering, the legacy we're supposed to be remembering, has been replaced step by step to the point where there's very little of the old nation left. And what little there is, you're not allowed to celebrate. But one day a year. That's all I got to say.